You know, it all started on a quiet night in Willow Creek. This little dot on the map tucked between sleepy farmlands and an old abandoned mill, the kind of place where folks still wave at strangers and know your coffee order before you sit down. But that night, the front window of my general store exploded in a shower of glass, shards flying everywhere like angry rain, and there I was, Tom Harlan, standing in the dark with my heart pounding, realizing some lowlifes were out to make my life hell. I'd poured my sweat into that shop for years, inheriting it from my old man who built it brick by brick after the war, and now these thugs thought they could scare me off my own turf. See, Willow Creek had always been peaceful, but lately this gang called the Steel Ravens had slithered in, led by this slick-talking bully named Vince Torres, guy with a chip on his shoulder bigger than his ego, pissed because independent spots like mine were cutting into their shady deals on the edge of town, where they were trying to muscle in on land for some under-the-table warehouse scheme. They demanded protection cash from every small business, claiming it was for keeping things safe, but really it was just extortion to fund their power grab. And when I flat out refused, told them my dad didn't fight overseas to come home and bow to punks like them, that's when the brick came flying. I remember sweeping up the mess with my hands shaking. My daughter Mia, she's 22, working her way through online classes for nursing, whispering, "Dad, maybe we should just pay him a little, just to keep the peace." But I shook my head, feeling that fire in my gut, because giving in would have meant selling out everything I stood for, turning my legacy into just another puppet string for those ravens to pull. The next day, they showed up bold as brass, Vince leaning on my counter with that smug grin, his crew in black jackets eyeing the shelves like they owned the place, and he drawls, "Last chance. Harlan, cough up the dough, or we'll make sure this dump doesn't see another sunrise." Mia froze behind me, her eyes wide with that mix of fear and fury only a kid protecting her parent can muster, and I clenched my fists, saying steady as I could, "This store's been here longer than you've been breathing. Get the hell out before I call the cops." Vince just laughed, that cold, mocking bark, knocking over a rack of tools on his way out, leaving us in the wreckage, and I locked the door after him, wondering if I was digging my own grave. But damn it, surrender felt like chains wrapping around my soul, tighter with every breath. That night, as I sat in the dim light watching shadows dance on the walls, the rumble started low at first, like distant thunder, but growing until it shook the floorboards, and I peeked out to see headlights slicing the dark, not the Ravens' cheap bikes, but a whole convoy of heavy Harleys, chrome gleaming under the street lamps, engines growling like beasts ready to pounce. At the front was this burly guy, Bear Callahan, head of the local Thunder Riders chapter, beard streaked with silver, arms like tree trunks from years on the road, and he swung off his bike, boots hitting pavement with a thud that echoed my heartbeat. I'd heard stories about these riders, you know, the kind that make folks cross the street, outlaws with a code, loyal to their own, but rough around the edges, and here they were, pulling up like guardian angels from the wrong side of heaven. Turns out, Bear had caught wind of the Ravens' crap from a buddy in town, and something about my stand hit home for him, maybe cause he'd lost his own garage to similar thugs back in his youth, or just hated seeing hard-working folks get trampled in the name of greed. He looked me square in the eye, voice rumbling deep. "You picked a fight with the wrong crows, Harlan, but you ain't fighting alone anymore." I stood there, stunned, as his crew formed a wall outside my store, bikes lined up like sentinels, and when the Ravens screeched back later that evening, bats in hand and gasoline cans swinging, they froze mid-stride, Vince's smirk fading fast as Bear stepped forward, cracking his knuckles with a grin that said, "Trouble. Touch this place, and you'll be scraping your teeth off the asphalt. This man's feeding families. You're just feeding your fat wallets. And that ends now." The standoff was electric, Vince spitting curses, trying to rally his boys with that fake tough guy sneer. "This ain't your turf, old-timer." But Bear just chuckled low, engines revving behind him in a chorus that rattled windows up and down the street, making the ground vibrate like an earthquake. And you could see the Ravens' bravado crack, their eyes darting as they backed off, tails between their legs, leaving the air thick with exhaust and unspoken threats. Mia tugged my sleeve, whispering in awe, "Dad, they're staying for us." And I felt this knot in my throat, pride mixing with gratitude, because for the first time in forever, that weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter, like I wasn't carrying the world solo anymore. But Willow Creek wasn't all cheers. Folks split right down the middle, some leaving baskets of muffins at my door as quiet thanks, others whispering in the diner about how the riders were just trading one kind of trouble for another, scared, cause these bikers had a rep for bending rules when it suited him. Mia felt it hardest at her part-time gig in the cafe, some snobby classmate snickering. "So your dad's got outlaw bodyguards now? Classy." And she'd come home flushed, but holding her head high, telling me over dinner, "It hurts, but I'd rather stand with you than hide." I sighed, rubbing my temples. Respect doesn't come easy. Sometimes it takes a roar to wake folks up, and sure enough, as if on cue, Bear knocked that night, warning low. "Vince is licking his wounds, but he'll strike back. Stay sharp." A week later, the Ravens got bold again, storming into the store in broad daylight, Vince slamming his fist down. "Still playing hero? We'll rip this joint apart nail by nail." His voice dripping venom, eyes locked on Mia like a predator, making my blood boil. But before I could snap back, the door chimed, and in walked 3 riders, casual as you please, one leaning on a shelf with that "don't test me" stare, and Bear filled the doorway like a storm cloud, growling. "Became our fight when you crossed a line. Now back off before things get ugly." Engines outside thrummed to life, more bikes pulling up, and Vince's crew wilted, faces paling as they slunk out, muttering threats but moving fast, and Mia squeezed my hand, her voice soft. They looked so small, dad-like bullies finally getting schooled. After that, the town started shifting at the market. Old-timers nodded my way with respect, kids on bikes yelling, "Awesome rides," and I even caught myself chuckling, though tension still coiled in my gut like a spring. That evening, Bear and I sat on the porch, him puffing a cigarette, me nursing a coffee, and I asked quiet, "Why us? You don't even know me." He exhaled slow, eyes on the horizon. "Seen too many good men break under pricks like Vince. You got spine, Harlan. That's rare these days." Mia brought him a refill, and in that moment, I saw past the leather and tattoos. These were guys with scars, sure, but hearts loyal as steel, forged in their own fires of loss and brotherhood. The Ravens didn't quit easy. Vince, seething over losing face and his grip on the town's underbelly, where he was eyeing prime land my store sat near, plotted dirty. One rainy night, I jolted awake to flames licking the awning, smoke choking the air, Mia screaming as I grabbed a hose, panic clawing my chest, thinking this was it, everything gone in a blaze. But then the thunder hit, riders swarming through the storm, some dousing the fire with buckets and jackets, others vanishing into the dark after the arsonists, Bear stomping out embers with a curse, damn cowards, hiding in shadows. I slumped on the curb, coughing, Mia's tears mixing with rain on my shoulder, and Bear knelt, gripping my arm firm. "They burn 'cause they can't break you means you're winning, man." By morning, the town buzzed at the charred marks, neighbors gathering with tools and sympathy. But before I could start repairs, the riders rolled in mass, unloading lumber and paint, Bear barking orders like a foreman. "This place rises stronger, no arguments." They worked all day, patching walls with precision, joking rough but efficient, turning my battered shop into something shining. And as the sun set, an old lady from down the block wiped her eyes, murmuring, "Never thought I'd see bikers building instead of breaking." I leaned in the doorway, voice thick. "Why all this?" Bear shrugged. "Simple as that. You fought for right, deserves backup." Vince went all in then, desperate to reclaim his turf before the Ravens fell apart, word slipping to Bear about a final ambush. That night, he found me locking up. "They're coming heavy, stay inside." But I shook my head, broom in hand like a silly weapon. "My fight too, let's end it." Midnight hit tense, streets empty till the Ravens' engines shattered the quiet, pulling up cocky, but instead of easy prey, they faced the riders lined wall to wall, bikes gleaming defiant, me and Mia on the steps, Vince sneering, still hiding behind leather. "Harlan?" My voice cut clear, steady. "Nah, standing with M, 'cause real strength don't bully, it protects." The air crackled, engines roaring from both sides like dueling storms, town folks peeking from windows, breath held as Vince revved, but Bear's boom sliced through. "You lost the second you picked on the little guy. This town's got spine now, and it ain't yours." The riders' chorus shook the ground, windows rattling, and Vince's crew crumbled, bikes turning one by one. Vince spitting fury but fleeing last. His empire in tatters. Silence dropped heavy. Then cheers erupted, folks pouring out, clapping, hugging, Mia whispering teary. "They're changing everything, Dad." Willow Creek woke different, talking respect instead of fear, customers thanking me not just for nails, but for standing tall. But here's where it gets tricky, sure. The riders stuck around for the town fair, rolling in like heroes, blending with the crowd, kids waving, adults toasting, and I even got up on stage, voice cracking a bit. Didn't plan to fight, just hold what matters, but standing up showed me we're never alone if we choose courage over easy. Bear handed me this patch later. "Honorary brother, you earned it without wheels." Mia beamed, and as engines faded into autumn dusk, peace settled. Yet I wonder, was calling in the riders trading one power for another? They brought justice, yeah, but at what cost to the town's soul, relying on outlaws to chase shadows? If this tale hit you about standing firm, finding unlikely allies, or questioning where protection ends and control begins, drop a like, subscribe, hit that bell so you catch more real-life twists like this. And hey, comment below, was I right to dig in my heels, or should folks like me just pay up for peace? What's your take on vigilante justice in small towns, fair game, or slippery slope? Share your stories, let's chat it out.